Good morning all. Today I am taking the concept probability distribution. Probability distribution, we classify probability distribution into discrete distributions and continuous distributions. Before defining discrete distribution, first I wish to define experiments. Experiments are classified into two. One is deterministic experiment and other is random experiment. What do you mean by deterministic experiment? If the result or outcome of an experiment is known in advance, then the experiment is known as deterministic experiment. Example, all experiments in physics and chemistry labs are deterministic. We know the result or outcome in advance. Second type is random experiment. If the result of an experiment is not known in advance, the experiment is known as random experiment. In this type, we get only possible outcomes. For example, consider a random experiment of tossing a coin. Here we get only possible outcome, either getting head or getting tail. And consider a random experiment of throwing a die. Either we get face value 1 or face value 2 or face value 6. All these are examples of random experiment. Next concept is sample space. The set of all possible outcomes of a random experiment is called sample space. Sample space is denoted by capital X. Again, we classify the sample space into two. One is discrete sample space and other is continuous sample space. What do you mean by discrete sample space? A sample space is said to be discrete if it contains either finite number of points or countably infinite number of points. What do you mean by countably infinite number of points? A set of points is said to be countably infinite if there is a 1-1 relation between set of points and set of natural numbers. If there is a connection between the elementary points and a set of natural numbers, then the set is always said to be countably infinite. Number of stars in the sky, number of hairs in the head, number of sea sands in the seashore, all are examples of countably infinite sets. Examples of discrete sample space. A coin is tossed 3 times, then the sample space is equal to either HHH or HHT, HTH, THH, HTT, THT, TTH, and finally TTT. This sample space contains only 8 sample points. That is finite. That is, sample space is finite. Therefore, this is an example for discrete sample space. And second example is, a coin is tossed until first head occurs. Then the sample space is equal to either H, or the pair TH, or the triad TTH, etc. Here the number of tosses required to get first head is 1 or 2 or 3 or etc. Any real number, any natural number. Therefore, this is an example for discrete sample space. Next is continuous sample space. A sample space is said to be continuous if it contains continuum of points. Example, select 2 points on the circumference of a circle and measure the distance between them. What is the distance? Distance, here the sample space is the distance. X denotes the distance. Set of all x such that 0 less than or equal to x less than to 2r. The minimum distance is 0 and the maximum distance is diameter. What is r? R is the radius of the circle. Next concept is one-dimensional random variable. What do you mean? What is the difference between variable and random variable? Variable is a characteristic under study. If you wish to study the height of students of a college, then height is the variable, weight is the variable, age is the variable, mark is the variable. And what is the difference between variable and random variable? Random variable is a real valued function. It must have 2 sets and there is a mapping from domain to codomain. What is the definition? A real valued function defined over a sample space of a random experiment is called one-dimensional random variable. Here domain of the definition is the sample space and codomain is the set of real numbers or set of real number system. Random variables are classified into two. One is discrete random variable and other is continuous random variable. We have two types of sample space. The domain of the random variable is sample space. Therefore, we must have two types of random variables. What is the reason? We have two types of sample space. One is discrete sample space and other is continuous sample space. That is, a real valued function defined on the discrete sample space of a random experiment is called discrete random variable. What is the definition? A real valued function defined on the discrete sample space of a random experiment is called discrete sample space. Next is continuous sample space. What is the difference between discrete sample space and continuous sample space? If the domain of the definition is discrete sample space, then it is called discrete random variable. If the domain of the definition is continuous sample space, then the random variable is called continuous random variable. And based on these definition, we have to define discrete distributions and continuous distribution. Okay, thanks.